Sometimes real life is stranger than fiction. This is a reality trip with Ben Fama Jr.
Hello, everybody. This is Ben Fama Jr. Thank you for joining me. This is Reality Trip, and I got a really cool special guest today, my good friend C.M. Halstead, author of Innocence. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great. It's my favorite time of year here in northern Arizona. It's 80 degrees and perfect every day. So,
well, I think we're going to have a great conversation. We were just talking off camera just a minute ago. We had a great conversation. So I think we're going to try to bleed this into what we're doing right now. So if you guys are just joining us for the first time, welcome. We are broadcasting live on Facebook at facebook.com/realitytripper. You can leave your comments and suggestions. If we have time, we'll get to some of your questions and stuff if you're there. If not, if you're on the rebroadcast on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. And if you're listening to us on iTunes and Stitcher on the audio, you can always check us out. And of course, you can find all that at benfamajr.com. So let's get to it real quick. I want to talk about your book, Earned Innocence, but I want to talk about something real quick. I know some people have been waiting for me to kind of say this. I want to just go over it briefly. And
I know I have. I've been curious what you were going to say about it. So.
Yeah, so it's no surprise. It's been a little bit while now, but recently there was just an attack in Las Vegas. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, even though everyone talks about it, is that this is something personal to me because most of you guys know, or if you don't know, I was actually born and raised in Las Vegas. And so I know that city like the back of my hand, and I know the people there. And first off, I just want to say before we get into anything that I just want to give a shout out to all the people that came together in that town. That really, it really touched my heart to watch that community come together. The first responders there, completely amazing. The Metropolitan Police Department and the hospitals, the way they responded, it blew me away. I worked security when I was out there, when I used to live out there, and I was a security supervisor. And I worked with Metro many times, even with terrorist planning. And I knew as soon as they got that call, because what happened with me is my dad called me and said there was an active shooter. And as soon as I heard that, I put on a police scanner. When I was younger, when I used to do security, I always carried a police scanner everywhere I went to hear what was going on.
I have a police scanner app on my phone.
Yeah, and that's what I have now.
Yeah.
I used to have the radio so I could hear it when I was in Vegas. But now, since I'm not there, I just have an app. So I pulled it up, and I'm listening to this as it's unfolding. Like as they're going into the room and they found the body and so I'm listening to it. But my first instinct was I knew that police department would be able to handle this situation very well. I know them that well. And you could hear the tactical units getting together. So first off, I just want to say thank you to everyone in Las Vegas who came together. It's weird when the situation like this happens, because you always look at the news and you're like, oh, it's just some event in that city or in that country or whatever else. But when you're from there and you know the people that are around there, it's weird because like you look at the news and you say, oh, this is what's going on. But then you see your friends' feed, like on Facebook, and people are texting you. And, I'm like calling, I'm texting my mom and my dad and my sisters because, you don't know. You're like, holy shit, and there's like this sinking feeling in the back of your head, like what's going on? Is everyone okay? And it's just, but when you see all these people talking about it, and like I said, fortunate enough for me, no one I knew was affected.
That's awesome.
But I did know people who did know people that were affected. So it was really sad seeing my Facebook and people saying, oh, someone was either injured or hurt or killed. And I'm just, man, I can't tell you from the bottom of my heart how much it felt when I saw that whole community just coming together. Like it was a power. The news kind of talked about it, but to see your family and friends and everybody talking about it and just doing whatever we can to do stuff it was so moving to me. And I was just really proud of everyone. So everyone in Vegas strong, you guys are fucking beautiful.
For me, that's, if there's ever a beauty in tragedy, that's it right there. And to me, you just touched on it, Ben, that, a horrible thing happens. And then all these human beings who've been basically living as zombies and just going through their day-to-day life, all of a sudden wake up, step up, and help each other. I know I witnessed a lot of that, not personally, but through other friends' Facebook feeds and stuff in Houston when that hurricane came through. Yeah. I know a few men who had boats, and they just took their boats down there, and they spent 2 weeks rescuing people and animals. And somehow there was always somebody at the gas station every day with their cash or cards to put fuel in these boats. Everybody came down with some cash, and they used it all up the first day, fueling everybody.
Yeah.
And then the next day, there was somebody else doing it. The next day, somebody else was doing it. It was beauty. And same thing in Vegas. Horrible stuff happens. And afterwards, you hear about accounts of like there's this one former Marine who acquired these construction vehicles who were stored nearby the incident, and he took 20 to 30 people to the hospital.
Yeah.
I mean, he in the Marine Corps we call it the fine art of acquirement, by the way, and it's a military term. And the key is you got to return it when you're done, and that's basically what the guy did. You know, he was apologetic. He says, "I'm sorry, dude. I apologize for all the blood inside your vehicle, but I took 20 to 30 people to the hospital, and hopefully some of them made it."
Yeah, yeah, and it is amazing when people come together during. Sadly, I hate it that it takes a tragedy to do it, but to see humankind and humanness happening, and the other reason why I'm bringing this up, especially the humanist part of it, is I kind of kept my mouth shut while it was happening, because the one thing that was disturbing me, and we all do it, and I've been guilty of it, and I'm trying to be better at this, is that I saw a lot of people all of a sudden become very political as soon as it started to happen, and to me, I know people don't want to hear this, but I figured I waited till now to talk about this because I feel like there's been enough time. And the reason why and I'll tell you why I'm waiting to say this right now, because what happened is that as soon as it happened, everybody got on their political soapbox and everybody started saying what they felt that they needed to and justified why they wanted to say whatever. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be a debate about this or not. For me, I just felt like at that moment, there's some people that went through some serious tragedy and people just lost family members. There's people suffering. They're grieving. No one gives a fuck about your political point of view at that moment. They're not even listening. They're trying to deal with their own grief. And at those moments, I feel like we should just be dealing with, the victims. How do we help the victims? How do we help the people either, find their loved ones or give them counseling, or just being there for people as a human being and putting our politics aside for a moment and just saying, how can we help these people right now? Because everybody that got into this shit about their fucking gun debates and conspiracy shit wasn't helping the people in that moment who needed to help for what that was. And I felt that was a little selfish of us to just get into these debates immediately. And that's why I didn't. I was like, you know what? There's a time and place for this. I feel like right now is the time and place because I feel like there's been at least a little bit more time for there. But I just hope that when these situations happen to people, and people understand these are human beings here, right. And a lot of people don't give a fuck about your political opinion at that moment, okay? Why are we not out there helping these people for those things and understanding that these people are needing that, they need to be taken care of. That's more important than your political views. I guess that's what I'm trying to say is taking care of the well-being and the mental state of people going through a serious situation like that. To me, that's how I felt, is there was so many people grieving that no one's even listening. So that's why I'm waiting till now to say something. And I'm saying this because one, yes, I am from Las Vegas. I've dealt with a lot of things that happened in Vegas, working in Vegas, doing security in Vegas. But two, I feel like, to me, nobody's addressing the fucking elephants in the room. And that's what we were talking about earlier. And that's what I want to talk about. So I want to knock out two things just really quick. One, the conspiracy theorist. First off, fuck you. Like, literally, fuck you. Like, I fucking hate conspiracy theorists. I can't stand them. But I also want people to understand there's always going to be conspiracy theorists. Right? There's always going to be people who don't understand the situation, that don't know how to deal with the situation, that are going to make things up. In that situation, look, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. Don't let these people get you so riled up, right? That you're not refocusing on your life and what you're trying to do and how you're trying to understand stuff, right? I saw a lot of people who were upset. I was upset as soon as I saw that. And you know how I feel about conspiracy theories. I fucking hate them. But at the same time, I didn't allow it to get me to I didn't allow myself to be so pissed off that I didn't go back to focusing on, like, what do the victims need, or what does this community need right now, or what can I do in my own life? So at the same time, you can't let that shit bother you. Two, I know maybe we'll talk a little bit about this, about the gun debate. There should be a debate about guns. I think there should be as long as we're being honest and not bullshitting ourselves, I think there should be a debate. I'm fine either way, where we go with it. My real problem is I don't think we're getting to the core of why. I don't think we're getting to the psychological mind of why does something like this happen. And I feel like either A, it's too uncomfortable for people, or B, people don't actually give a fucking shit.
About getting to the root problem.
To get to the root problem. Yeah. And so that's what my focus has been since it's been happening, is I'm trying to understand what was the motivation of this guy, right? It's not that I'm trying to give him my energy. It's not that I'm trying to be like, oh, I'm trying to focus on my life just because, what I'm trying to understand is the more I try to understand the mindset of somebody, the more I can understand human behavior and thinking. And maybe there's tools or things that can come out of it that we can, like little golden nuggets that we can take to learn to better our lives. So I've really been trying to get into the mindset of what this guy was actually thinking, instead of just people being like, he's just evil. Yeah, he's evil. Of course he's fucking evil. But that's not going to solve any problems. That's not going to get you to understand, to look into it. Oh, and I want to say one more thing, and then I'm going to move past this point, because I want to get into the mindset. That's why I think we're going to have a great conversation. I just want to say something briefly. I know this is going to piss people off, but I don't give a shit.
It's one of the things I like about you, Ben.
I don't mean to piss people. It's not my goal. It's just, I just want to get real. Like,
yeah, I resemble that remark.
So yeah, exactly. Yeah. I want to talk about this whole notion of pray for Vegas. And I want to say it in two parts. First off, I completely understand why people feel the need to say that they're going to pray for Vegas. I don't fault people. People feel helpless. They feel like they feel like they're doing something. They feel like they care to want to do something about this terrible tragedy. So I'm not like mad that people said, "Oh, pray for Vegas." I mean, I'm empathetic to people. They feel hopeless. They feel lost. I mean, when you feel, insecure, you want to turn to things to help you, and you feel like, oh, I want to try to do something. And for some people, that's their way of doing it. I don't want to be such an asshole that like I don't understand it, because you're not a human being if you don't understand empathetically what's going on.
At the very least, they're putting intentions out there.
Right. They think that, yeah. So I want to say that first off, but I want to say something and be very clear about this, because I don't want to hide behind the bushes. The reality is, praying for something is not going to help anybody in the end. There's no evidence for praying. There's no evidence that prayer works. There's no evidence. And I know people don't really want to hear that. But the reality is if we really want to deal with these situations, I think talking about them and getting into the mindset and trying to figure out why these things happen and trying to figure out how to prevent them is going to do more than prayer is. I've long given up on prayer because I've found out there's no science behind it. There's no mechanism out there that proves that prayers are going to create and solve problems. Like, it's just the reality. It's the real world that I live in. I know people don't like to hear that, but I don't want them to be afraid of that. And what I'm saying is that I think if we get into the inner core of why something happens and we figure out why do people do this, why is society the way it is, then that will actually give you better results. That's my thinking. So first off,
it's a good start.
Yeah. So what is your first off? I'm going to talk to. I didn't get to talk to many people about the thoughts and feelings that they had about this situation. So when you heard about the situation out there, what was your thoughts? What was your perspective?
The gamut. At first, I'm like, oh, great, here we go again. And what I mean by that is, the great gun debate. I would love it if it was, and you've said a lot of this already, so I would love it if it was about supporting those people and supporting the first responders in the aftermath that comes with dealing with a situation with this. The aftermath for the people who are at a concert, they're minding their own business. The next thing you know, they're getting fired at.
Yeah. So
just that shock from. I don't want to say, I'm not going to say Vegas is utopia, but they're in like a euphoric situation. Yeah. You're having a great time. They're drinking and doing whatever they're doing. They're listening to music. And because somebody lost their mind, next thing I know, they're running for their lives.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, great. Here we go again. To me, there's a couple of big things here. And a lot of this will probably piss people off as well. But, you already put that disclaimer out.
Yeah.
One, why put yourself in a situation when you're totally out of control? Why would you put yourself in a spot where you're caged in and you can do nothing to protect yourself, and you've put all of your faith and effort in somebody else to keep you safe and protect you? I don't recommend doing that. Why would you be in a corral surrounded by tall buildings? And I know this is nothing that a civilian would ever think about. For me, if I was at that concert and I was there with a bunch of Marine buddies, we'd be trying to have a good time, but I guarantee we'd be watching those buildings at the same time. And for a million times, nothing would happen. Mm-hmm. But we're going to be looking at those buildings all the time. There's a new fad around here of putting really thick tinsel on roofs, so it keeps the birds off. So every time I see that flash of light, I go from, we'll say, euphoric utopia to, is there a sniper over there?
Yeah.
And a switch just happened in my brain.
Why don't you tell, for people that don't know your backstory, before we go any further, talk a little bit about you so they know who you are and why this is important.
I had a pretty tough upbringing. You know, I'm a military brat. And then right after, you know, doing that 17 years as a military brat, I joined the Marine Corps, and I did that for just a few years. You know, it's amazing how a lifetime ago and such a short period of time of that little time in the Marine Corps really affected me in the way I think. I think a lot of it is a lot of stuff you and I believe in and think about, and that's, you know, what you are is where you were when, is a good way to put that. What you are is where you were when. So basically, my experiences growing up define who I am now. Growing up on that military base in the time of the Cold War, when, you know, at the time it was mostly the dads. The dads would disappear for a few days, and then you watch the news to see what happened. You know, we were stationed at RAF Lakenheath, and I'm in high school, right? And we're trying to learn biology and history and all that, and there's just F-111 planes taking off like crazy. And we lived there. We know, okay, you know, one or two every hour or whatever, we're used to that. But when they're taking off and they're taking off and they're taking off and they're taking off, and we were just told that morning that our dad's going to be gone for a few days, we know something's up. So growing up in that life and that as a kid, I call it Mayberry with war, basically. You know, you're in this utopic society. I have everything that, not just everything I need, I have everything I want on base. There's bowling alleys, there's movie theaters, there's a PX where I can go get clothes and food, and all that happens. And at the same time, our parents are dealing with the worst parts of humanity. You know, they're dealing with Cold Wars and actual wars and bombing dictators and, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So my eyes were wide open, I would say, from a young age. And, you know, time in the military and the Marine Corps is definitely, you know, my dad was Air Force. You may have picked that up already. So I call it, you know, the white collar service. And that's basically what it is. And it's great. And they're awesome at what they do. But they're not made to get down on the ground and get hands dirty and see what happens down on the ground. And that's what us Marine Corps does and the infantry does. And there's a lot of people who get down and either mix it up or see it or deal with the aftermath of the worst things that humans do to each other. Right. So, you know, I'm sitting here now as a 46-year-old. When I was still a teenager, I'm, you know, witnessing people killing each other and stuff like that. And it's really just a big eye-opener. So for me, when there's this, I have to deal with people reacting to, oh my God, you know, I thought we were safe every time something like this happens. And I'm already thinking, of course we weren't safe. The person I was with when 9/11 happened, it totally, I mean, don't get me wrong, it totally utterly rocked my world, but it didn't break that innocence. My innocence was already gone. And I'm kind of smiling. It'll make sense here in a couple of minutes why I'm smiling at that. You know, I already know the worst things that humans can do to each other. Yeah, I've seen them. You know, I've heard about them. I've talked about them. If I didn't see them with my eyes, my buddy did, or another buddy did, or another buddy did, and he's dealing with that aftermath now, 20 years later. So, you know, we hardly ever deal with it when it's happening. We're going through that situation. We're working through that situation. Same thing with the first responders in Vegas right now. They're still dealing with that situation. They're dealing with that situation. And as soon as they're done dealing with that situation, that brain's going to kick in. Yeah. And all that stuff they didn't have time to deal with, the emotions and all the other ways, you know, first responders and people deal with in that moment. You know, everything that they haven't been dealing with is going to slap them in the face. And they'll have to deal with that. I think, I'm not sure where I was going with that, to be honest, but the big point is, I think what happens every time something like this happens is we get knocked out of our American utopia. Yeah. And that is the goal of America's society, and most societies, most empires, is to keep their people in that utopia. Mm-hmm. You know, think the Romans. You know, they tried to keep their people happy. They tried to keep their people happy. That's what all the lions and the gladiators and all that was entertainment. Yeah. Modern day version of that would, you know, football and baseball, you know, all the sports that are out there right now is a modern day version of keeping us happy in a utopia.
And you bring up a good point, because I do believe that Americans have been living in a bubble for a very long time. Like you brought up, and most of the time, the only people that know this are people that travel overseas, that this as tragic as this is, sometimes this is normal everyday life for a lot of people out there.
Yeah, daily.
Daily being killed. And I mean, it's, like I said, it's a tragedy here, but there's other people probably in other parts of the world that are like, we're dealing with this all the time. Like, welcome to our fucking world. And I don't think we're being real with ourselves when we're asking the questions like, how do we actually understand this to deal with this? Not just here in America, but just in the world. Because like you said, this is human behavior, and there's a reason why humans are acting the way. And I know that these are uncomfortable subjects for people, but like I was mentioning earlier, getting into the uncomfortability, what I believe will get you to solve problems better is when you understand it and you get real with yourself and not bullshit yourself and saying, oh, I can't watch this now, it's too much bullshit. I think when you're trying to deal with a mindset, and you probably even can speak of this, being a Marine, there's a lot of bullshit you got to go through in your mind to overcome things. I mean, the military teaches you that too, is that you have to have a mindset to overcome those things. Unfortunately, most civilians, we're not taught how to think and how to overcome these type of things. So when we're looking at things that are going on in society now, whether it's this unfortunate shooting or terrorism or just our mindset in society, what do you think is going on with us in our psyche? What do you think we're not addressing? What do you think is the underlying monster that we're really not looking at?
Well, if you're talking us as in us being the American society, generically speaking, if that's the us, because it's hard for me to answer to an us, because, you and I think a lot alike. We might address this the same way, but, the stuff I was dealing with, and I'll say I was instigating on Facebook this week. I really was, because anytime this happens, everybody's like, ban all the guns and everything will be perfect. And this isn't a new thing that happens. And right now I'm going to mention the word amok. A-M-U-K, I believe is how you spell it, even, amok. I thought it was just some slang term that people use for somebody out there wreaking havoc. And it's an actual known scientific term for when a human being all of a sudden chooses to hurt a bunch of other human beings. And it's not a new situation. It's just thousands of years old. And we've had current armaments, automatic weapons, maybe, God, it hasn't even been 100 years yet, have it? But, for thousands of years, we've been running amok.
Yeah.
They found it used to have a different way to do that. In places where they've banned all the guns, now they blow each other up or they use poisonous gas. Automobiles. There seems to be a newer trend of people using automobiles to just run over people. To run amok. So run amok is a term I want to plant in your brains right now, is that run amok is not a brand new thing. Running amok is something that certain human beings every once in a while just decide to run amok. And if we can figure out why that happens, what that trigger is in the brain where that happens, then maybe we can get to the root cause. In the meantime, we're going to banter back and forth on Facebook about gun control and about mental health issues and about does insurance even cover mental health issues these days?
Yeah.
If you're going to a therapist or psychotherapist or whatever kind of therapist you want to call it, is that even covered with our health insurance? Generally, it's not. I remember when I was a young kid, there were tons and tons of institutions where we put mentally ill. So at least it was a place to put people and say, okay, we want to watch them for a while and see how they do. Where are they now? Mm-hmm. They're out in the world running amok.
Yeah.
I think that is something that would behoove us to change. Us, we're in denial. I really think we as a society are in denial. We think we're different than everybody else. So when something like this happens, or we hear about some atrocity that the military did, or the politicians when they do illegal, immoral things in order to get elected, we try holding them to a higher standard when the guy who lives next door is doing the same damn thing. So I really think one of our biggest problems as a society is the denial.
Yeah. And I think it's a Band-Aid, what you're talking about, what people are doing, the gun debate, all these other things. I'm not saying these aren't important conversations to have, but right. I think there's still a Band-Aid. I guarantee even if you banned all guns, somebody's going to figure something else out. And I think, like I was saying earlier, not everything's fucking black and white. It doesn't need to be all or nothing. There could be middle grounds for something, but we're not talking about the underlying things like we're talking about now. The mental well-being, the psychology of what creates a human to act that way. Exactly. People will hide behind things and say, well, it's evil. It's the lack of God. It's all this other bullshit. I'm like, no. You need to get into the mindset of what is causing somebody to act that, look like in a virus called fear. I brought this up with Hitler, briefly with Hitler and Charles Manson. I don't agree with anything they fucking did. But if you're not going to get into their minds to figure out what was their childhood, what was their programming, what was their worldview, how did they think, you're never going to fucking understand the human mind and why we feel the need to kill each other, why we feel the need to do destructive things, terrible things to humans. But again, we turn to all these other systems as we think politics and religion is going to solve it. It's not. It's going to be the psychology of humans. But then what do you think is the psychology of humans? Why do you think, getting into the core, I mean, I have an idea of it, but what do you think is the core of why we commit such atrocities?
Oh, that's a good question. I think we commit those atrocities because of outdated belief systems and outdated instincts. I think, when human beings were towards the beginning, or, I don't want to get into how long we've been around, how long we haven't. I will say we've changed a lot in my lifetime. So I'm sure in the previous 10 lifetimes, we've changed a lot as well. A lot of those old systems are still in us. They're still working. We still have that reptilian brain inside of us. Right. And when we get angry is as a secondary emotion. It's brought on by something else. And when we get angry, we tend to flip over to that reptilian brain. Yeah. And when I'm in that reptilian brain, there is zero logic that's going to come through.
Exactly.
There is zero. And we all run into this on Facebook or in life. If you've ever been in customer service and there's somebody on their side of that counter that's just yelling and screaming at you and you have no idea why, it's because it's not about you anyway. Yeah. It's the guy who cut them off, and then the guy who took the last parking spot, and the kid took the last burger so he hasn't eaten since this morning, stuff like that. But you're just that last catalyst that sets him off. So same thing with that Vegas guy. He wasn't up in his room going, man, that music's too loud. I'm going to blow out this window and then off a bunch of people. It was a lot of pre-thought and a lot of life actions that led up to that moment. So if we could get out of that old denial system, and I know I keep coming back to denial, but I think that's one of those outdated belief systems. Ben and I were just talking about a movie called Crude. It's a cartoon that some of you may have seen about literally a caveman family, or I don't know how you would politically correctly say that these days.
I'm not into political correctness.
A cave person family, right? The caveman woman, father, son, child, right? The dad had this mentality, and it's why they're still alive, that as long as they stay in that cave, they're safe. And, oh my God, this has happened. Run for the cave, we're safe. Stay in the cave, we're safe. Stay in the cave, we're safe. And if it wasn't for her daughter meeting this new person when their entire world started to literally blow up and turn into lava, if they had stayed in the cave, they would be done, and they wouldn't be alive right now. They had to take the risk to remove themselves from that cave and step from that old belief system and do something new in order to survive long enough to learn how to thrive.
Right.
And, well, that's a great one to me, is to step out of your belief system long enough to survive, to learn how to thrive. I don't know if you've ever moved on from something you're taught to something you're doing now. I know I'm doing that. I'm the first one, I think, in 4 generations of my family who didn't do 20 years in the service. That was a wound I had to deal with when I got honorably medically discharged. It was, okay, I was supposed to do that for 20, 30 years. Now what? And I've reinvented myself a bunch of times. And the first thing they told me was, okay, go get a job. So I got that job, and I had different jobs for years and years and years, and I was very, very unfulfilled. And it wasn't until I went against all my belief systems that I started actually taking steps towards my version of success, which is to be, for what my biggest version of success is to be happy.
Yeah.
And what makes me happy now is being present for my 11-and-a-half-year-old boy. I didn't have a father who was present for me. I think my life would have been a lot different if I had. I see him and how much more empowered he is. And that's my goal, is to empower him and empower everybody in my life, to be honest. And it's awesome to see that with him. And there's part of me going, man, I wish I had a dad in my life, to instill these mindsets. I wish I had been present. But if I haven't thrown away that old belief system that I was taught, there's no way I'd be present with my son. I'd still be managing people. I'd still have 84 employees. I'd still be working 50-plus hours a week. And I would hate it.
Yeah.
I'd come home exhausted, tired, and grumpy. And now I pick up my son from school. I talk to him on the way to school. We listen to his music every once in a while. I can handle that rap music for that 30 minutes now. I'm not ready to pop and blow all the time because I'm satisfied. I'm pursuing my dreams. I'm doing my thing. I'm empowering me by changing my mindset.
Which is an important thing, because I realize that on the path to wanting to do something hard, whether it's successful, whatever the fuck it is, whether you're trying to be a writer, a filmmaker, whether you're trying to get off of drugs, whether you're trying to deal with PTSD, whatever the fuck it is, you've got to have a mindset where you're willing to do what's hard to push through it. And you got to change the way you think about it, because there's always a self-doubt. There's always this monster in the back of your head that's always stopping you from seeing the world from what you actually need to do. And I'm glad that you actually brought that up for that exact reason. So
yeah, thank you. And the book we're going to talk about here a bit is called Earned Innocence. And Earned Innocence, when I started writing it, I started as a cathartic military fiction. And that really says everything on that topic right there, cathartic military fiction, dealing with some stuff. And it became broader than that, it became bigger than that. And we'll just say the first act of the book is all about instilling that Marine Corps mindset that I can do it and I'm not going to quit. I don't care if my leg falls out. I joke and say it's the Monty Python's Black Knight. He gets his leg cut off. Come over here, it's a flesh wound. He gets his arm cut off. Oh, I got this. He's laying on the ground. He's like, why are you running away? I can do this. I can take you. That mindset. And, that's a funny way to instill it. And at the same time, out in the job that we had, that can do, will do, succeed at all costs mindset is why we're successful on missions in the Marine Corps and in battles in the Marine Corps and afterwards.
So how do you get yourself into that? Because this is a very important subject for me, and it's the one thing I've been exploring for many years, and I'm getting even more serious about it, is that mindset. Why is it some people are able to push through extreme difficulties? Like there's people that survived the Holocaust and still went on to live successful lives. There's people obviously that come back from war. Unfortunately, some didn't make it, some did. What do you think is the mindset? Is it a trainable thing? What goes through the mind of people that succeed versus not succeed?
I think a lot of it is a trainable thing. That's a big part of what I got from my military service was, just because the dude next to me is 200 pounds and he looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't mean he's going to make it up that hill.
Yeah.
In fact, I realized really quickly in boot camp, and this is interesting aha, is that the people who were stars in high school had the hardest time. Because they were always, it was all easy for them. Oh, yeah, I threw those passes all the time. Well, great. But that was then. Now you got to carry your own weight and you got to carry this. And nobody's going to give you fanfares. And even if you do it right, you're still going to get punished because you didn't do it fast enough. You didn't do it quick enough. And all of a sudden, the guy who used to be the star is watching this skinny, scrawny little fucker named Chris Halstead kick his ass.
Right.
Because there's no way I'm not going to make it.
Yeah.
That is all it is. There's no way I'm not going to get up that hill. There's no way I'm not going to make it to the other end of the pool. There's no way I'm not going to tread water until you tell me I can stop. And there's a part of me that always had that mindset. There's a little part of me that always had that, fuck you, watch this, I'm going to do it. Or I wouldn't have joined the Marine Corps in the first place.
But that's what I was trying to get at is not everybody has either taught that or had that. So do you think for people that may have never had it, do you think that they're just stuck in this position? Or what would you tell people that maybe have never heard it? There's people that come from broken families, obviously, and we all had crazy fucking lives.
Yep.
But there's some people who never had the tools or had the drive, but maybe they're at a point in their life now, which I believe is when you're at your lowest point, that sometimes you'll push yourself the fucking hardest. Right. That to me, like I didn't have a great mindset for many fucking years. I always had a drive, but I just fucking failed at every fucking, literally dog, like every fucking thing I did, I failed at horribly. But I got fucking angry at it. And so I'm trying to change that mindset even myself, doing all the things I'm doing. So what would you tell someone who may never have had that? Because you said you've always probably had it. What if you didn't?
Well, I got a twofold answer to that. There's a part of me that always had it instinctually. There must have, or I wouldn't have made some of the choices I chose. And I can also tell you this is not a nature versus nurture thing with me. I was not nurtured into that succeed at all costs mindset. Pretty much the opposite of that. My sister and I joked that we raised ourselves and we did a great job raising each other because we were highly successful in life and as parents. But that's not what we witnessed growing up.
Yeah.
We could almost take the opposite of what we witnessed growing up and apply that, and we'd be damn perfect parents.
Right.
So it wasn't the background, or maybe it was part of it was having to step up at such early age and be mature and move on from the bullshit. We weren't coddled at all. We had to figure it out or die. And, that's not exaggerating at all. So, that's part that, life made me do. And in boot camp, when I got to boot camp, I realized I still didn't have that wake-up call. I knew I needed a wake-up call. And what I did was learn how to change my mindset. And I think a drill instructor's goal, especially in the Marine Corps, is to push you to the edge. And as you're falling off the edge, to pull you back. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay, there's your bottom. Now you know where it is. Now work harder, get faster, get stronger, get mentally strong, get physically strong. So next time we're on this edge, it's not here anymore. That ledge you almost fell over, it's way over there now because you're stronger, tougher, physically and mentally. Honestly, the difference between a Marine and a non-Marine is a Marine knows he can do it, and the non-Marine doesn't. And that's a very egotistical statement, the way I stated it, but that's improving a point. When I succeed, it's because I know I'm going to succeed. And when I fail, it's because I'm trying. Yoga said it the best. He really did. There is no try. You do or you do not.
How important is failure? Because here's
Failure
the
is
thing.
mandatory.
Well, here's the thing, because a lot of people are afraid of failure.
Yeah.
And for many years I was too. In fact, I failed at so many things that at some point I just stopped fucking trying. I was so fucking burnt out from failing at so many things. I was like, fuck it. I'm just not fucking smart enough. I'm too fucking like everything you can think of is the reason why I didn't even try anymore. And then I realized that failure is part of the process.
Yeah.
And that if you fucking learn from it's the only way you get to the fucking is by failing the fuck out of it.
Herein lies the rub.
Yeah. So and I didn't realize that at that time. You know what I mean? Like I kind of did, but it didn't sink in. I was like, oh, I'm a failure. Like it was something about me. It's like, no, every person who's done something great, who's pushed themselves through a fucking mindset, has dealt with failure. That's how you learn. That's how you readjust. That's how you maneuver. Say, okay, that didn't work. What do I need to try to make it work? So what is your thoughts on that, on failure?
Yeah, it's mandatory. That was a tough lesson for me to realize that, I could bring out all sorts of cliches. I'm not going to do that. But basically, if I haven't failed, I haven't tried anything. I haven't taken any risks. And actually, it's been about a year now. I went back and I talked to this former employee, and he used to be a teacher. He taught English, and now he's doing Jeep tours here in Sedona. He's still teaching. He's basically been a teacher his entire life, and he witnessed me go from manager of 84 people to doing absolutely my own thing, taking the absolute risk of throwing away. To clarify, I was the epitome of the definition of success by American standards, and I fucking hated it. I was miserable. I was horrible. I was physically sick. I was an ornery, grumpy old bastard. I was thinking about drinking again. Mm-hmm. It sucked. And by our definition, I was there. And that was my bottom, was the top. The top was my bottom. The top going, okay, I'm here. Where is this happiness?
Why does it fucking suck, right?
Why does it suck? And now that I'm doing the absolute opposite and people think I'm crazy, I'm the happiest. My wife and I spent, a couple years ago converting a 1980 30-foot bus into our house, and we live in it full time.
I think it's awesome.
I love it. And you either think I'm crazy or you're jealous.
But
no, I mean you specifically.
No, I know. But I want to say something before you go on, because I wanted to bring this up when you said it before. The definition of success. I think it's another bullshit thing we have in society, is saying, oh, you need X, Y, and Z in order to be successful. And I like that you said that, because I think success is what you wanted to define, right? It's not always just about a lot of fucking money, what kind of car you drive. Are you living a good life? Like, are you happy? That's all that fucking matters. Like, in the end, we've been so bullshit and conditioned in the world to be like, we have to have this. And like, especially us as men, we have to have this type of job. We have to have a lot of money. We have to have... Fucking says who?
We have to provide.
Who's making up these fucking stupid ass rules that we're driving each other over the fucking edge and fucking feeling like we're not good enough to provide? We're not, and especially when we live in a world where everything's becoming automated, people are losing their jobs, things are getting outsourced all the fucking time, and yet we work all this fucking time to do what? To do what? We're not even living our fucking lives. Success has been bullshitted down our throats for so long that you need a lot of money and all this other especially us as guys, like and stuff. You need all this fucking bullshit. So you work fucking 40 to 8 hours a week of your life. Like you said, what looks like on paper for people that, you're trying to impress people that don't even give a shit about you in the first place, until you get older and you're like, what the fuck am I doing? What did I do with my life? And I'm in the same position where you are, where I felt like, whatever I had was not fulfilling. It was not, I'm not living. This is my fucking life. Like, this is our fucking life. And I know life isn't just handed to you, but you realize after a while, people have been bullshitting for these outdated beliefs. That's one of them. This fucking stupid thing in society that we're going to work ourselves to fucking death. I believe in hard work.
Totally.
I believe in fucking, working hard, but not to nonsensical bullshit that doesn't have any value. That when you sit on your fucking deathbed and you're sitting there and like, did I live a fucking full life? Did I do what mattered? Did I do what mattered to the people around me? That's what I think success actually is, not this bullshit that people... And I'll tell you what, and I'm saying this because I've studied enough successful people. I've been around fucking millionaires and billionaires. They're miserable. A lot of these people are fucking miserable. And I never understood that, because I was always like, I don't know how you can be miserable and be a millionaire, but I mean, I understand why. I do.
Well, they're addicted to more. And if you're addicted to more, M-O-R-E, you're never going to get there.
Exactly.
Never.
And that's the whole premise, is that we have been bullshitted for so long that we think if I just make it where the grass is greener on the other side, we're going to be fucking happy. And again, this goes down to the uncomfortable truths and the mindset, to where I believe a lot of these people are doing the things they're doing because they're so fucking uncomfortable that they need to take it out on other people. Like you were talking about the angry person in customer service, right?
Right.
That was probably me. I have a fucking dude. Look, I have a terrible anger problem, and I've been arrested twice. I've gone through anger management. Like I've. This is why I'm so passionate about this, because anger has ruined my life. It literally has ruined my life, and I'm just trying to get my life back, and I'm doing a better job at it. But I've made so many shitty mistakes because of my anger, and this is why I think it's important. But again, anger comes from a threat. It comes from fear. It's
right.
And what we don't talk about is a lot of these guys who are angry and pissed off, and even a lot of people come back from war. There's a fear that's there. It's how do you deal with these situations, right? I mean,
well, it's trained into us and encouraged.
Yeah.
It's part of that job It's a job requirement for that job. It really is.
but we still need to deal with that mindset so we can live better lives. Instead of letting the anger consume us and the depression and the fear, let's get to the core of what's actually going on, right? And figuring out what it is, because you never know, dude. You might figure out the thing that says, hey, I don't need to live my life like this anymore. It's not gonna be perfect. It's not gonna be butterflies and whatever the fuck. I hate this bullshit, like utopia bullshit. I'm talking about what are some real world practical stuff that I can live a better life, that I can just be a better human being. I can feel better about it. That not that I'm always going to, but I can deal with it better. That's what fucking matters to me.
Congruency.
I'm sorry?
Congruency. Being congruent.
Explain.
Being congruent means I know I'm doing what I want to do and it feels right.
Right.
It could be as simple as, do I want to go get a cheeseburger tonight? Yes or no? And when I say no, if I feel heavy, then that's the answer. If I say yes and I feel, light, excited, I'm going to go get a fucking cheeseburger, then that's what I do. To me, that's being congruent. If I say, do I want to go get a cheeseburger? And my real answer is no, but I do it anyway, and I'm not sure why, then I'm not being congruent and I'm not being true to my true desires. I mean, I'm talking about cheeseburger here. That's pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
But do I want to be an author? Fuck yeah, I want to be an author.
Yeah.
Do I want to sit in a cubicle? Ugh, see? I mean, it's like, and I've done that, and it can be that simple. This was the final catalyst for me, and this is where I think whoever that I'm a dad. I wasn't planning on being a dad, and I'm a happy half-time owner of an 11.5-year-old going on 30. And it seems like he is. I mean, he's reading at an adult level, and I'm so proud of him for that. But one of the things I wasn't proud of me for was every night when I tuck him in, when I put him to bed, I say, I love you, you're awesome, you can be anything. And I truly believe that you can be anything. And if you don't believe you can be anything, let's talk, because that's why you cannot be everything or anything, is because you already have told you that you're not going to be able to do
mindset,
it. Mindset. And I know we were dancing. I mean, if there's going to be one theme today for us, I think that's it, is mindset. And I'm in my life, and I know in Ben's life, it's all about the mindset. It's how I carry myself. It's how I'm thinking. It's action I'm taking. I know you just totally did a big curveball on the direction you're heading with your personal, your businesses and stuff. And even like today, I'm like, oh, shit, I got to comb my hair. I'm going to be on, I was expecting to be on, a podcast kind of thing. And I think that's awesome. That's what it takes. And you just re-steered. I put my son to bed. I love you. You're awesome. You can be anything. And God, over the years, I go, I'm not walking my talk. I'm not being congruent. I've always wanted to be an author. I've always wanted to be a novelist. But I've always wanted to do this. But I always, I need money. I need to do this. And I said, okay, I want to keep saying this to my son because I believe him, but I'm not walking my talk. And I started walking my talk. And I just did everything I had to do, including reducing our, 4,000 or 5,000 a month outgo to next to nothing. That was the catalyst for the whole living off grid and solar panels and all that, was reducing our outgo so we can pursue our dreams and do that startup stage. The whole overnight success takes 10 years, as they say. And I'm open to it happen in 3, 2, 4, whatever it happens, but I'm not expecting it to happen tomorrow. I'm getting really.
It's the long game. It really is.
Game. I'm releasing my 3rd novel in 3 years, and I'm starting my 7th novel in 3 years.
Wow.
So as soon as I got out of my way 3 years ago, what I always wanted to be started happening. And the only thing that changed was me. I got out of my way. That's it. I know I'm going to fucking yell at this microphone because that's it. It's that simple and that hard.
So what was your mindset before? Because I was the same as you. In my early 20s, dude, I've been wanting to be a filmmaker since my 20s, all right?
Yeah.
It took me to my motherfucking 30s before I got the shit out of my head that says, oh, well, you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, you're not. And I don't care. People could look at my shit now like, well, I don't even think you're fucking. I don't even care anymore. Like, my mindset is so like, I'm fucking doing this. and walking that talk and saying, look, I don't have all the fucking answers. And not a lot of people even know who the fuck I am now. But I can't go back to being in my 20s and just making excuses and living like the fear
unconsciously.
The fear of quitting and the fear of like going back to my old way of thinking is what drives me. What was your mindset before? What stopped you from writing that book originally?
Men have to provide. We're supposed to be providers.
Yeah.
And honestly, that was the mindset that actually had me leaving home when I did at 16 as well. Is that, I was supposed to go to high school and I was working as much as I could as a 17-year-old and a 16-year-old before that, which I think in New York was 33 hours a week, something like that, after going to school for 40 hours plus homework. And, I was being asked to provide for the household and the family. And I had to live by her rules.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, if I have to be a provider, I'm going to go somewhere I can live by my own rules. So even at that very early age, I had that provider mindset. And even into adulthood, and as I got married, and then when that kid came along, oh my God, dude, I mean, it changed everything. I got to provide for this kid. I got to give him everything he wants. Not everything he needs, everything he wants, and this and that. And so it's just changing. My mindset went from providing stuff to providing presence. Now I think it's more important that me as a dad, or you as a dad, or you as a mom or a grandparent provide presence for that child. I'm not talking about something that's wrapped up and that comes at Christmas time.
Yeah.
I'm talking about being there for that child, being that mentor, being that good and bad influence as an uncle. I surround my son and uncles. I consciously drag people into my life, and I say that in jest, but I attract them into my life, and I don't go into the whole law of attraction thing, but I'm a friend with somebody. You're cool. Oh, you love kids. Oh, you want to be an uncle for kids? Great. Come with me. This is my son. He needs good uncles. He wants to learn how to do this. Teach him. It's gifts for my son. It's gifts for me because I can be out of it and I can watch my son learn from somebody else. Because my son learning from an uncle is different than learning from his dad. I'm an authority figure. I'm in a different role, a different persona than an uncle is. Mm-hmm. An uncle can laugh and joke and say, yeah, I know you're supposed to do this, but just do this every once in a while. It's harder for me to do that until he's at that adult stage.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that we provide presence for our children. And look at our modern society in America. What's the thing we provide the least for our kids and our children? Us, our presence. We're too busy providing stuff and income and paying off whatever.
Because we're having to work our fucking asses off. We're working more and more and more and more. And this is the problem, that going back to that success mindset fucking thing, that I hear all these fucking thought leaders talking about, oh, you need to work 40, 80-hour days, whatever else. Look, dude, I'm getting to the point where I don't see, look, I'm about hard work, but I think we waste a lot of time believing a lot of bullshit and not focusing on what we need to when it comes to hard work. And we're sacrificing our families, we're sacrificing our lives for what? To do what? To have a fucking Ferrari? Like to have, what the fuck do you need that you need to waste your entire life? Look, I'm all about fucking working hard. But I'm not going to waste my life to get things that people don't even give a fucking shit whether or not I have or what the fuck it is I do. But yet I also think people hide behind that and why they don't do what matters either. I know a lot of people that say, well, I'm busy. I got to do this. I got to raise a family. I'm like, well, there's a lot of people who had to do the same thing. And they still, like, do you want to write or not? Do you want to make a film or not? Like, it's not going to be handed to anybody. If you feel like you want to just be a family person and just go to your job, there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, there's a lot of people out there that are like, they had the same thing and they still did it anyways. I think a lot of times we hide behind these excuses and say, well, I can't do this or I can't manage my time. Everyone has 24 hours in a day. Everyone does. And there's successful people out there right now. They have the same 24 hours of trying to raise families, trying to, so I think we make a lot of excuses. That was the same way when I was in my 20s and I was doing security. I gave up all my fucking dreams. I basically said, oh, I shouldn't be chasing after anything anymore. That's basically what I fucking did, and I fucking ate shit for that. I ate shit. My fucking life completely fell. I don't want to get into it here, but my life fucking fell apart with all the shitty decisions I was making because I got so focused on this other mindset and I wasn't thinking clearly. And it was a house of cards. It all just fell on me. And I made a lot of terrible mistakes that I'm still paying for to this day. You know what I mean? And to me, I just decided, okay, dude, you can't keep holding up a house of cards. It's not true. You got to do something that's real, that's more either sustainable or not sustainable, because this is not a sustainable career. You know that. I mean, writing and filmmaking is not. But again, it's like what matters to you? What do you feel at the end of the day when you lie in that deathbed is gonna fucking matter? Your family matters. You know, your life that you live matters. But I feel like we hide behind so many things that we don't even try. We don't even try to pursue it. We don't even try to put the hard work and realizing it's gonna take 10, 20 fucking years to do this. Believe me, I am fucking impatient.
I resemble that remark.
I hate being patient. It's the one thing that I want to bring this guy named Gary Vaynerchuk on my show. He's one of my favorite people. And I've been trying to email him about patience because it's about the long game. But that mindset for that long game is saying, okay, my first couple projects didn't work out. My first couple films didn't work out. My first couple books were like whatever. But
they're getting great ratings, but they're not selling thousands.
But do you see the growth? Do you see the like from where you're at to now? Do you feel like you're still growing as an artist? Do you feel like you still have that mindset? Like what keeps you going?
You know, in my life, 3 years has always been a magic mark. And I'll explain that a little bit. You know, by 3 years at a company, I know I'm done. Mm-hmm. I don't want to do this anymore. Or in a relationship, I know I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Or whatever, 3 years. And 3 years for an author is like, fuck, I'm just getting started.
Yeah.
I'm just starting to figure this out. I'm just starting to figure it out. And I'm entering my 4th year. I'm not tired of it. The opposite. I'm like, everybody else needs to go away so I can start writing my 7th and 8th book. I mean, fuck off. You guys are awesome, but leave me alone. And, you know, my family is still learning on how to deal with that kind of push-pull for me. You know, I love my family. I want to be there for them. I want to listen to them, you know, watch what they want to watch and interact with. You know, I'm the only introvert in my house. My dog, my kid, and my wife are extreme extroverts, and they get energy off being verbal. And when I'm in author creative mode, I'm writing as soon as my eyes come open and until they go to sleep.
Yeah.
And what I mean is, as an author, I am working if my eyes are awake. If my brain is awake, I am working. I am working. You know, there's a joke that people say an entrepreneur is somebody who works 80 hours a week so they don't have to work 40.
Yeah.
There's some truth in that for that hard work. But redefine the definition of work. Learning to be a creative, I had to redefine my definition of work. It's not about cranking out widgets. It's not about doing 20 reviews or doing 9.5 hours in a cubicle or this. It's not that defined. You know, if I'm out hiking, I'm working. That's moving meditation for me. That's where most of my books or the problems in my books get resolved is when I'm out hiking. And if you look at me, I'm walking through the desert, you know, and oh, cool, he's taking a day off. I'm busting my brain. I'm burning calories like crazy. Most of my job now is the gears turning, and all of a sudden something pops. And I get up from whatever it was doing. So I'm not going to walk out on you today, Ben, I promise. But sometimes I'm watching TV and it pops and poof, I'm in my writer's cave. It's 2 a.m. It pops, boom. We're out somewhere. I'm like, oh, wait, don't talk to me. And I got to put something down in the notes. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. What were we talking about?
That's the way it is with me and Mesa, where she, and you're bringing up a good point because I want to say something about exactly what you're saying when you talk about the walking meditation. The one thing I was learning about creativity that I've been fucking up on is that the brain can only handle so much information at one time and even action. It's when you have those reflective moments that the brain interprets it and actually work. Like Einstein would sit and have thought sessions. Tim Ferriss has a great book I'm reading right now called The 4-Hour Workweek. It's not new, but I love it. But he talks about like...
That's the book that made him.
Yeah, and sometimes you need like 4 hours to just contemplate on the creativity. Like turn off your fucking phone, and people are like, oh, that's great, you have 4 fucking hours. I'm like, no, that's when I'm in the most intense. That's when I'm sitting at a fucking whiteboard, fucking, you know, like there's times that I'll be laying. I was gonna say I'll be laying in bed and it's like fucking 2:30 in the morning. I'm like, boom, I'm up, fucking just working until fucking like 12 in the afternoon, just working on ideas or researching something. Like I have very terrible hours, like just terrible. But I'm the same way. It's just when I get into a zone, I'm like, I shut off my email, shut off my phone. I don't respond to anybody because you have to, especially as a creative. People don't get how hard being a creative is. You have to be able to compartmentalize these ideas and take a moment to reflect on them. And then, but you can't spend all your time in the thinking mode. You got to create the action with it. You know, you got to implement
take action. Yeah.
But you need a lot of that time to really just, you know, like you said, and sometimes most geniuses I see out there, they do it on their walks. When they take a walk, that's when they come up with the ideas that they can implement later on. So I think it is important when people are like, oh yeah, you're just on a walk. No, bullshit. It's an important part of the fucking creative process.
Don't judge my creative process, damn it.
Yeah, exactly.
The judger and the critic are not allowed in the writer's cage.
Like, go write a fucking book or make a film if you think so. Like, no bullshit. Like, people think, oh, that must be great. You guys just make films and write. Like, motherfucker, do it. I guarantee you it's fucking a lot harder than you fucking ever would imagine. Ever. And people are just like, they don't get it. They're like, oh, it must be nice. I'm like, believe me, it's one of the hardest fucking things I've done.
That's what management was like. People would be like, oh, man, must be nice. I said, well, I'd be like, what, you're having rough days? Yeah, I can't do this anymore. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll trade.
Yeah.
Really? I just got to sit there? No, you don't got to just sit here. I'll go give that tour, but you got to handle this, and this, and this, and this while I'm out there doing your tour for 3 hours. You're not just going to sit in my desk. So I don't just sit here.
Yeah.
It's the difference. Like same thing, juxtaposed to that. People think that moving to Sedona and being a Jeep guide is the dream. And it might be the dream for you, but trust me, you're going to bust your ass. You're going to do 40 to 50 hours of actual Jeep tours every week. Plus you got an hour of prep time in the morning, plus an hour of cleanup that you don't get paid because you're wait for hire. Yeah. If you're not on tour, you're not getting paid, even if you have to be there.
Oh, I mean,
these are 14-hour days.
They only pay you when you're on the tour?
Yeah, it's wait to hire. It's like a taxi.
I didn't know that. Yeah, and I drive. Most people don't even know this, but I drive part-time.
Oh, you still? I didn't know you were
still doing that. I drive, and most people don't know. So like yesterday, I worked from like 1:30 in the afternoon until 11 o'clock at night. So, I'm usually getting home at like midnight, trying to prep everything for the show. It's like the show. They're like, oh, how great. You stick up some microphones. You saw the prep that I got to fucking do before I did this. And then I did hours of prep last night to do, you know what I'm saying? So people don't see the behind the scenes. They think, oh, this is fucking easy. I'm like, my entire life revolves around this. Like, literally, I don't play video games anymore. I don't watch any other types of fucking movies. Like, literally, from the time I fucking wake up, like you said, to the time I go to bed, all I do, if I'm not working on something, I'm either studying psychology, politics, philosophy. I'm studying business. I'm studying marketing, which was interesting, is that I never thought that my study of philosophy, psychology, and religion,
that's all marketing.
And then study marketing, and then business, which I love, and then filmmaking would all be the same thing. It's this mindset of psychology, which is what I love. I love this stuff, but it's a lot of fucking work. It is a lot of work, and if you don't have the mindset, you'll quit. Every day, I'm like, why are you fucking doing this, Ben? There's days I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Right? I feel like I want to quit. Yeah. But then I don't know if it's like you're the same way, but then the next day you're like, bullshit, I can't quit. I've been there. Like, for me, I've failed so many times that I'm the type of person I keep looking back at my life and being like, well, what if I just continued doing that more? I hate that feeling.
Well, is that failure or is that quitting?
Well,
to me, there's a difference.
To me, when I look back at all most of the failures I had in my life, I think I jumped too emotionally into something without really thinking it through. Like, I thought I wanted, it's like the shiny new object. Like, oh, this felt good at this moment. Like, and even though I was passionate about it, I don't think I put 110% in. I thought I did, but the realize is I quit too soon. Some things I quit because I probably should have. I had no business, doing it. But I learned that maybe that's not what I'm good at. And if I was passionate about it, I would have kept doing it. Does that make sense? Like, all the things that I did. I mean, that's everything. My relationships, everything. Like, I feel like I failed at it because I really didn't have that. I didn't have a mindset. I thought I did. I thought I was driven until I realized what it actually took. Where I'm at now is I look back and I'm like, I've learned from those failures. I hope I've learned from those failures. I always say that. I try to be humble,
There's some things I did like 5 times before I figured it out.
Because I still make mistakes now and I try to learn. But where I'm at now is I'm also like, okay, Ben, you've been here before. You've quit before. You've failed at this before. And why did you stop? Whereas now I'm like, I can't afford to go back to quitting. Does that make sense? Like, and to me, I'm like, well, why do you feel that way? It's kind of like you're saying in the Marines, like you feel like you want to stop. You feel like you don't want to do this. It's never going to feel fucking comfortable. It's never going to always feel like you want to do it, but you still got to have something there. And to me, that's what I've changed now, almost fucking 40 years old, was, okay, it's going to be hard. I accept it. Yeah. It's fucking uncomfortable truth, which is what we talk about. This is why I bring this shit up. I think this mindset is what the problem is in society. We're too comfortable. I'm not saying we're overly comfortable. We don't know how to deal with discomfort. So the mindset that I have that I'm asking you about is the same thing I feel like is the problem in society. It's uncomfortable to listen to Trump. It's uncomfortable to talk about racism. It's uncomfortable to talk about gun control. Yet not being comfortable with being uncomfortable is a problem.
I think you asked the perfect question for this phrase that runs rampant in the Marine Corps. I mean, it's a big part of our legacy, and that's embrace the suck. Embrace the suck. There's shitty stuff's going to happen. It's going to be muddy. It's going to be cold. It's going to be hot. There's going to be mosquitoes. People are going to shoot at you. You're going to run out of ammunition. You got the same MRE you've had for the last 4 weeks. You know, things are going to suck. Just embrace it and accept it and move on and do it anyway. And we suffer a lot less, I think, when we do that.
Exactly.
And we're not fighting the cold weather. You know, I'm married to an awesome woman who, even though we live in the desert, she's cold from October to March. She hasn't accepted that weather.
Yeah.
To me, that's it. You know, and I have the same problem in the heat. You know, once it gets above 100, I get turned into an ornery bastard. I haven't accepted it's 100. I'm like, I want it to be colder, you know. And
Yeah.
if I would just relax and say, yeah, it's 100, it'd be a lot easier for me to deal with it. So embracing that suck, embracing the failures.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's a suck. That's a hard thing to deal with, especially in a society who doesn't believe in failure.
No, and it is. You feel like if you fail, you're a failure, and it's the biggest lie people ever fucking tell you. Really, the only time you fail is when you don't try and you just stop. And that was the mistake. I kept calling myself a failure for all the fucked up things I did, and then I realized, okay, but you're not dead, and so
that's called a self-manifesting prophecy, by the way. I think, and you kept saying, "Oh, you know, I'm a failure," and then we make ourselves one.
And then you start to become one because you believe it. And this is how powerful beliefs are. I mean, I just made a whole fucking film about fucking beliefs, right?
Dude, I love that film.
Thank you. And that's why I challenge it. I know it's uncomfortable for a lot of people, but I challenge it for that exact reason, because I believe the way you see the world is important. And when you have a distortion, a perception, your perception is your reality. Mm-hmm. I think the people that succeed,
whether it's true or not.
Whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I really believe that the people that succeed in life, and I'm not just talking about success and money, I'm talking about people who get the fuck off of drugs, people who don't commit suicide, right? The people who've gone through fucking hell and back, I think they learn to manage their perceptions. They're able to push themselves through at a moment where it seemed like it was difficult. They knew in that moment, but what was your perception at that moment? Because just like you said with anger, at that moment, your brain is shutting down. Mm-hmm. You're not thinking logically. Every time I'm fucking angry, I know I'm not supposed to be thinking. I'm sure you guys see my Facebook where there's times I fucking go off and I'm like, Ben, why did you fucking say that? Like, I'm trying to get better at it. Like, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm saying
you're working on it.
It's a self-awareness. And that's what I'm trying to work on, is my self-awareness and saying, look, I want to be true to who the fuck I am. I want to be authentic, but I don't want to be so stagnant in my ways that I don't learn to grow and think differently. And that's why this is important. And I think that once we start to look at the world that way, we learn to make better decisions. And when we can't do something, like with Donald Trump, we have the fucking dumbest motherfucking president in the entire fucking world. And I was just as upset as everyone else. But I've actually come to the point now where I'm like, okay, he's a fucking idiot. I don't need to listen to him. I'll need to listen to when I need to. But when I can do something, I'll do something, right? Like when I can vote, I'll vote. See, people think that you always have to give your energy to things you have no control over. They always think that, oh, I have to constantly be, you know, like I don't even watch the news now.
Or just give away their energy, period.
And don't look, find out the things in your life that you can control, right? Like all the things I'm talking about right now is what I can control. Like instead of me focusing on Donald Trump all the time, talk about the things that fucking matter, so you give people the tools to let them live their own better lives. If you take that locus of control back, you're more likely to live better lives. And this is just my personal opinion. I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks about it, honestly. I think the problem is everybody feels like their life is out of control. And I feel like if people felt like they had a little bit more control over their own lives and not worried about the rest of the world all the fucking time, it's not about sticking your head in the sand, that people will not only live better lives, but you'll see the results that you need, that you wouldn't require a government. You would need less police officer, right? Like think about it. Like if we get into the point of why does someone feel the need to rape somebody? Why does someone feel the need to break into someone's house and kill them? Why does someone feel the need to kill people or cause violence or terrorism? Right? There's some sort of insecurity or something going on in their own mind. If you feel like you're at peace with yourself and you feel fulfilled enough in your own life, why would you need to rob somebody else, right? Like if you're happy with your own life and not bullshitting yourself,
right?
There's nothing in someone else's house that you actually need, right? If you don't feel the need to take control over somebody else because you don't feel fearful, you don't feel the need to commit violence, you don't need to feel to commit rape or any of these things that are going on. Now, having said that, doesn't mean everyone's just going to do that. But at the same time, on the flip side of it, if you're a victim of these things, understanding it, you get your power back. You may say, look, this is a terrible situation.
It's not about me.
But it's not about you. That person's going through such a fucked up mindset that they're not even aware of what they're fucking doing. Like, people think, oh, everyone knows the difference between right or wrong. Yeah, but in that moment, you don't. Like, what I mean by that is...
Well, they know their definition
exactly
of right and wrong.
Some of the worst atrocities in the world are by people who thought they were doing the right thing. If you think about it, Hitler didn't walk around and say, oh, I'm going to go do the wrong thing. He believed he was right in what he was doing. So you have to be careful about how you perceive reality. So when people commit crimes and they do stuff, it's not that I'm trying to say it makes it all better. What I'm trying to say is you're getting some of that locus of control back and saying, yes, this is an unfortunate event. Humans experience fucked up shit. Let's just get over that part of it, right? But it doesn't mean you can't find the tools needed for you to still pick up the pieces and move on with your life and get some of that control back, and that nobody has that control over you. You do not always have control of everything else in the fucking world. What you do have control is how you respond to them. I know it sounds Buddhist.
That's the only thing we have in control.
What's that?
The only thing I think we can control in our lives is us and our decisions.
That's our responses. Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. And so I hope that those understanding that, I think, even talking about the military with people with PTSD, there's some things that they're not going to be able to go back and change, and that they feel guilty. And then last time we were talking about survivor's guilt.
That's right.
You know, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, and maybe I can get your thoughts on it more. Is there a premise where we can say, yes, these are unfortunate events, but I don't really have any, like, if you could have had more control over it, you probably there wouldn't have been a different decision made, right? People make mistakes. Is there a way that we can look back at it and say, these are unfortunate, but it would be foolish for me to live my life continuously being in this way when I didn't have control over that situation? For us to move on, like, what are the mechanisms?
I know you don't know this, Ben, but you just hit the theme of earned innocence. And those questions and those statements you just made, that is an unknown theme of earned innocence. You know, usually when I'm writing a story or a book or something, I don't know what the theme is until I'm at least halfway through. I know I had 100 words left, and I just finally figured out the theme. Right. It's amazing how that happens. So talk about trusting the process when you're a creative.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know what the theme was until, sometimes I'm like, oh, come on, what's the theme? What's the theme? That is one of the huge themes of Earned Innocence. In Earned Innocence, we touch on the human, I'm going to call it disease, the human disease of genocide. Genocide happens annually amongst the human population. Yeah. It's not just the big guys. It's not just the Hitlers. It happens every single year in countries that most of us haven't even heard of, and we don't even know about it. And that's one of the things that the hero in the book had to deal with, is an incident that was that tragic and that horrible, and nobody knows about it, and nobody will ever know about it. You know, it's amazing to me that this stuff happens every single year.
Yeah.
Every single year. And I forgot what did you specifically ask me that got me onto that? I was just like, wait, he's preaching my theme here, you know. But
it was dealing with the mindset of when somebody's dealing with a huge tragedy or something that they had no control over.
Thank you.
What is their how do you deal with the responses to something where even like survivors? I'm sure there's people right now from Vegas that feel that, like, well, if I didn't show up, if I didn't, you know, like, there's all
why am I here? But my buddy next to me got shot.
Yeah, but you don't have control. I mean, it's a shitty situation, but you've got to be able to pick up the pieces and move on with your life.
And I would say it's not just something I would say it's something that people have to deal with, not just veterans.
This is why I'm bringing it up. Yeah.
I wondered if that was a loaded question.
Yeah.
We all deal with post-traumatic stress. I also want to plant another seed that I learned from Folsom is his name. He's a great veteran who's doing his part to empower veterans. And he has stopped using the word disorder. And I'm adapting that as well. It's post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd have to look up definition of a disorder, but I know it doesn't sound right. It doesn't feel right. Disorder means something's wrong with you. Just because somebody has an emotional or physical reaction to an event doesn't mean something's wrong with them. To me, the only time something's wrong is if somebody's a psychopath, and the only person who doesn't have reactions is a psychopath.
Yeah.
So psychopaths don't have reactions, positive or negative, or negative in that case. They don't have post-traumatic stress. They don't have nightmares from seeing somebody getting blown up. They have the opposite. I mean, that's their desire, is to create that effect.
Yeah.
So that's the only person to me that has a disorder. Somebody who is dealing with survival's guilt. Why am I alive, but he's not? If I'm dealing with survivor's guilt, that's me reasoning why I'm here and they no longer are.
Yeah.
What's my purpose? To me, that's a basic human question. What's my purpose? Why am I still here? Why did he get eaten and I didn't?
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. That's the whole reasoning thing. Why am I still here? Why am I still here? And we all deal with that. Our parents dealt with that. Our ancestors are going to deal with that. It's just part of being real and being alive. And if I'm real and being alive, I'm having feelings whether I like it or not.
Yeah.
I'm going to feel anger. I'm going to feel joy. I'm going to, whatever it is that's going on in me, fear, shame, anxiety. I know a lot. Something I dealt with a lot is anxiety. There's this, they call it hypervigilance. I was taught at 17, 18, 19 years old to pay attention to everything that's going on around me because people are trying to kill me.
Yeah.
And now that's an irrational fear, maybe, right? Because if you're one of those people in Vegas that was down there in that concert, you'd be sitting there going, well, that's not irrational fear. I should have been watching my back. I should have been paying attention. That's again, herein lies the rub. How am I supposed to be happy in euphoria and watch my back at the same time? Is that hypovigilance, or is that where people in most parts of the world, in third world countries, in barrios, in inner cities, where high crime rates, high violence, high death, that's a day-to-day occurrence for them. That's a realistic instinct that they have to use. But if you're growing up in suburbia or in a high-rise penthouse, that's not an instinct that your body has to use daily. So it may come across as an irrational, illogical instinct or part of your being because it doesn't apply to you. Whereas into 90% of the human beings, it still does.
Yeah, but the problem with that, though, too, is that if you just become fearful of things, you're never going to do things either. And sometimes we actually fear things that don't happen. Unfortunately, there are times
Most
that
of the
they
time.
do. But anxiety is I have a severe anxiety disorder. That's one of the reasons why I talk about these things all the time, is that it creates this black and white thinking. It creates irrational decision making.
For safety.
Hijacks the mind. And so learning to kind of control that so where you're not overthinking it. Like, to me, I'm always worst case catastrophe. I'm always worst case catastrophe. Like, oh, this is what's going to happen. And so a lot of times it doesn't. Sometimes it does. But we can't keep living in fear either, because then we're never going to live our lives. Like, to me, I'm still going to go to a concert one way or another. Like, you're not going to stop me from going to enjoy it. And if that's what's going to happen to me, I don't have control of it. But two, on a smaller level.
Well, you had control. You had that choice, and you already made the choice. You accepted that if something happens, it happens.
Yeah. And the thing is that there's often times in our life, though, we overly analyze the perceived threat of something. And sometimes the threat is what causes us, especially as guys, to be angry. We perceive this anxiety is a way of just saying that, oh, there's a threat. Oh, that guy's looking at me, or that car cut me off, or you know what I mean? Like, especially stress. Another thing that no one ever talks about is stress. The effects that stress plays on the mind. It destroys the brain. And when you have a response to stress, right? Like, think about back in the days when we were hunters and gatherers, right? You had to know whether or not this animal was going to kill you or not. You had to know instantly. You couldn't sit there and be like, well, is that lion going to he's a pretty little cat. Like, you had to remember, and your brain's emotional response to a threat was anger. I either need to deal with it or get the fuck out of there.
Right.
So we still have that brain now, and we think that all these other things, like our texting and fucking people in traffic and whatever, especially people who have PTSD, I'll just put it out there.
Yeah. I'm just planting seeds here.
It's just these are triggers that our brains aren't used to because they're used to being from the jungle. And to me, understanding how do I deal with a threat that's not an actual threat. Like, some things we feel are fucking threats that aren't. Like think about it. Like, some people, I didn't make it on time. I didn't turn this in on a deadline. I got to pay this. Calm the fuck down a moment and think about, is this a life and death situation? What's the worst that's going to fucking happen? That's what I love about stoicism, right? It's saying that, like, think about it through. Is it as bad as you think that it is? Why are you expending all this time and energy on something that may not be as bad? Now, if it is, then deal with it. It's just like with Trump. Like, that's how I feel. It's shitty. But right now, we're still a country. He hasn't killed millions of people, right? I mean, we need to be preventative, but we can't just give up our entire fucking life.
Point of order, Trump can't kill millions of people. It takes thousands of people to kill millions of people.
And it can happen.
So even that wouldn't be on Trump
I'm not
either.
blind to
That'd
saying
be on those thousands of people.
I've studied history, and I know how history unveils itself and saying how a populace can turn on it. I'm not trying to say that doesn't happen, but you got to draw a fine line to saying how much can I devote to what I think is seeing what's happening and then what is. but also knowing that in your life that there's certain things that you're doing in your life now that you have anxiety about, that you're giving energy to, that may never fucking happen. And that you need to learn how to deal with their stress response, right? Like if the tree is moving, it could be an animal. You can walk your entire life thinking moving trees are going to be animals, but you're going to expend a lot of energy and stress doing it. You need to be cautious. But if it's not an animal, like the difference between us and other animals is like a zebra can look at it and be like, oh, there's a threat, and then he just goes on with his life. You ever see those
instant forget?
Like you see those documentaries where like there's this huge threat, and all of a sudden, like after the threat's gone, they're back to drinking water. Like that. But with us, we will constantly keep processing that shit. And then so when someone else does something, right? Like how many times people have been in a relationship, they got fucked over, they meet somebody new, and they do this one little thing, and they're like, what are you doing? Or we get into like every little situation that we're into.
You get triggered. That's what they say these days.
It's
right?
a trigger, and everybody's getting triggered now. And now with the internet, we're getting triggered every second. Like we're getting text here. This is what I'm telling people. Get the fuck off of your fucking devices, right? Get off your fucking news feed.
Dude, I found myself getting sucked in that recently, and it's weird. I don't understand. You know, I heard about that addiction and all this. I used to be okay, 20 minutes. Okay, I'm bored. But I found myself, you know, I'm getting my knuckle here, my thumb, I think is getting swollen up from scrolling. And for me, I realized part of my job, I think, is to pay attention to why we tick. And my job as an author, if my stories and books are going to be real, my characters have to be real. They can't be paper cutouts. And one of the research things I'm doing right now is I'm getting ready to write a rough draft of a trilogy. Already wrote the first and second, and they're psychological thrillers. And now that I got the rough drafts out of the way, or when I'm doing homework for really getting those details on what makes psychos tick.
Yeah.
So for me, that's homework. So, you know, I don't know if you ever heard the joke that every writer will get, if anybody checked his, what's that called, his browser history, they're going to go to prison.
Yeah.
I would definitely apply to that right now.
Yeah.
And even in my Netflix history, late at night when everybody else goes to bed, you know, that's when I get to do my homework on, you know, watch the psychological thrillers and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm watching, there's one coming out on Netflix you'll want to catch called Mindset pretty soon. And the one I'm watching is on the Unabomber. Right now, there's a series on the Unabomber, and they're talking about how, and I'm horrible with names and labels, so I forget what they're calling it, but they're basically, how they caught the Unabomber was the first time they really did this, and they used his dialect in his speech and in his written word to figure out where he's from. And the entire time, and it's always like this with the hero, right? With the protagonist, that everybody else are skeptics. All the experts are like, you know what the fuck you're talking about. They're like, yeah, show me some real forensics. And this is the first guy who created the actual forensics that use the dialect and the ialect and the idyllic. Idyllic is the word I'm looking for. And that's how they caught him. And the FBI agent had already been disgraced. You're like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Get out of here. You wasted millions of dollars and time. You suck. It's your fault.
Yeah.
And then the Unabomber's brother, and I think I can't remember if it was his sister or wife, saw the manifest and went, oh my God, what do we do?
Yeah.
And the guy was still the poor FBI guy was still disgraced at the time. And by the time, you know, they hate each other and that. But that's the point I am to the story is there's a lot out of that one little story. If you are first and you're a leader and you're doing things that other people aren't doing, they're going to ridicule you and say, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. You suck. You're crazy. That's how you know you're on the right path.
Sometimes some people think that some people, like conspiracy theorists, think the same fucking thing, and you're fucking wrong. But you're right. They
maybe
there's that saying that says pioneers always get slaughtered. It is, and when you're trying to carve a new path, everyone is resistant. We don't like change. We don't like resistance. I mean, look at almost every new idea, revolutionary change, carved a new path that was uncomfortable, that people didn't want. You know, whatever. The trick is, though, is if you're going to be a revolutionary and change and do something, don't become the same fucking monster you're trying to do when you're
right.
You know, and that's my big premise. Even with
Jack the Bull is a great movie, by the way. If you want to watch a Hollywood movie about what Ben just said, Jack the Bull with John Cusack is all about John Cusack becoming what he was fighting.
That to me is one of my most fascinating. I'm trying to pull up some of the questions here, and just my phone just freaked out. that's one of been my fascinating premises I've been studying for the last few years. I love revolutionary people. I love studying revolutions. I love not just in war and politics. I'm talking about like even in music. Like, you know, I was a big fan of Nirvana when I was younger. How he totally switched. You know, you had the hair rock bands, and then you know the grunge scene came on. Hip hop came on the scene, and totally. I love that shit, right?
It changed everything.
But what I tend to notice is with a lot of revolutionaries, and I always bring this up, like with Animal Farm and George Orwell, is that sometimes the oppressor or the oppressed becomes the oppressor. Right. And it's funny because if you look at it, you can see this not only in revolutionary, like look at Fidel Castro, right? Look at all these other people that were revolutionary. Look at even America a little bit. We were revolutionary. Now we're oppressing people. Okay.
And in my not so humble opinion, mostly we were oppressing our own people.
Exactly. And look at George Lucas, right? He was totally against the industry, and now he became the. Look at Steve Jobs.
Became the industry.
Steve Jobs. He was this. Like, here's what's funny, and I joke around this with my wife. You know, because I'm about revolution and doing, why do we got to do it the old way? Why do we got to be whatever? Don't be surprised if somewhere like 20, 30 years down the road, I don't do the same thing. I'm like, I'm against, you know, Hollywood. I'm against the corporate. Not that I would never do a Hollywood film. But I'm just saying, if you're not careful, the oppressed will wear the oppressor's clothes. And I'm seeing that in society right now. I'm seeing that, like, even with the left, right? Like, I talk about this all the time. I'm seeing a lot of these people, like the Antifa people, acting just like the fucking right. And I'm not going to get into the whole thing about it. But you got to be careful when you are pursuing new grounds that you are. It's like, what is it, Nietzsche that says, when you stare into the abyss stares back at you. You got to be careful that when you're in that mindset that you don't become. I think you even could experience this even in the military. Like if you, like Vietnam. You know, we're there to fight an adversary, and then we become the adversaries ourselves. We start to become the monster we're trying to overcome, and you got to be careful of that mindset.
Well, and in their mindset, we always were. We always were the monster in that case. I love what you're saying, Ben. I think that's great, and I wholeheartedly agree. It's a fine line, too. Even when dealing with, like, you know, something every kid deals with, and a lot of adults, you're dealing with bullies. How do you deal with a bully? You have to stand up to them. Yeah. The only way to deal with bullies is stand up to them and make it really difficult for them to get what they want from you. And what they're trying to, again, is they're trying to get power. They're trying to get their power that somebody took from them.
Why do you think we need power?
Why do you think?
Especially men. Why do you think we need power? That's like one of the questions I always ask. Why do we need power? Because we get drunk on it when we get it.
I know.
And it changes us.
I think it's how we feel safe.
Control.
The illusion of control.
It's all about control.
All about the illusion of control. Being that
it's
control
all about
button.
Control, man. I'm telling you, that's where I'm going into. Like, I'm not going to talk a little bit about it, but I'm working on my next film, and I don't know if you saw when I made Reasons to Believe, there was a part of the film that talked about the locus of control. That's what set me off. Like when I edited it, that piece, when I kept saying, I was like, God damn, this makes so much sense. So I want to dive into that as the next branching. But I tend to notice it's about control. When we lack control, an uncertainty, it creates fear and anxiety. So what are we going to do? Try to gain the control and gain certainty, even if it's irrational. Right? Whether it's turning to drugs or superstition or politics or whatever. Like, and I think for thousands of years, especially us as men, I'm sure women are the same way. There's this need that when we have a lack of control, there's a weakness, there's a vulnerability. We're afraid to be vulnerable. But then why are we so afraid to be vulnerable? Do we think we're going to get eaten in the fucking... I mean, we can. You got to be cautious.
You can be eaten by the wolves, either literally or metaphorically.
But you can eat yourself up by not allowing yourself to be... Like, we as men are not allowed to be vulnerable. And I think it's killing us in a lot of ways, that we can't even be saying, okay, maybe I'm afraid, maybe I'm worried. And so... I think being vulnerable allows you to be stronger. I think, me personally, I think when you deal with your vulnerabilities, you have a little bit more confidence. You know how to deal with the situation better. You know what I'm saying? But why do we need so much fucking power? Why do we need that control? Why can't we just say, it's okay?
You know, it's harder for me to answer that now because I don't feel that way anymore.
Yeah, but we see people in the world.
Well, I know, but I'm realizing this right now. I'm like, well, I used to have an answer to that question. I'm like, oh man. Yeah, it's got to be safety. It's got to be how I feel safe. If I'm in control, I think safe. It's the dad and Crudes again. They're in control in the cave.
Yeah.
So he thinks he's safe in the cave, you know. And you have a saying that was in that Reason to Believe, wasn't it? The allegory of the cave. Was it that when you talked about it?
Yeah.
When I get out of my comfort zone, that's when I grow.
That's exactly it.
So maybe it's if I feel in control I'm not growing. And that's not the question you asked me, but this is what I'm coming to. It's interesting.
It is, though. It is a question. You need to answer it. Because going back to the mindset, this is what I learned about successful people or anyone that pushes themselves through. They don't stay in a comfort zone. They don't stay within the cave. And then when you let go of that I need to control, and you are uncomfortable with the uncertainty, you do come out of the cave. You do. So you did answer it. That's a great thing. Yeah. So
and it's a cool little realization and aha. And for me, the cave I left a few years ago was the safety, big gratuitous air quotes here, the safety of known and common American dream and American society. Once I left all of that, that's when I started taking steps in the direction I always wanted to go in the first place. But all that other stuff that I was supposed to do and supposed to have prevented, it was like sedated me.
Yeah.
It was an attempt at sedating me. I think the newest vehicle I have right now is a 2002. That's the newest vehicle I have. My now house is from 1980. And I know most of the people I know, the oldest vehicle they have is maybe 5 years old. Mm-hmm. Maybe. And their vehicle is not crushed somewhere right now. Their last vehicle, somebody else is driving it. And the vehicle they had before that, somebody else is still driving it. Look at all, you go on, wherever you buy used cars, you look at the years, especially here in the Southwest. You can buy a car from 1970s that's in just as good a shape as a brand new plastic vehicle we're producing today. Mm-hmm. Chances are this plastic vehicle is not going to be here. But that 1970s truck or my bus,
the tanks, man,
are still going to be here.
Yeah,
there was nothing wrong with it, but we threw it away. Somebody threw it away. Society told us to throw it away. You need the newest. You need the greatest. You need the next one. And that's why an IKEA furniture is valued more used than an 1800s piece of furniture. It's amazing. If you put two things next to each other in the garage sale, this one's from the 1800s, this one's from IKEA, the IKEA one's going to be gone in 30 minutes. And you're probably going to have to do something with that piece of artwork from the 1800s.
That's funny you just said that.
Values
right before you came over, we were looking at couches. Our couches, we just bought a fucking new couch not that many years ago, and now we're buying another one because this one was a piece of shit. And I'm like, good fucking Lord. Like, it feels like everything we make, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but everything we make these days is just cheap and shitty because we want the money and the whatever to get the fucking quick
throwaway society.
But there's no value in anything anymore.
Right.
I'm not saying there's no value, but
there's no perceived value.
There's no perceived value. Even the stuff we're talking about right now, there's not. How many people are actually talking about it? Literally, a handful, right? Like, I turn on the news, I listen to the fucking podcast. They don't talk about this shit. I don't have a fucking shitload of fucking followers. I don't have a big ass audience, right? At least the people that listen to me, I think, are smart people. But I'm just saying, like, this. Where's the value? But yet, isn't there value in this? I think it is. I think talking about these things makes us better people. I think we learn to be better thinkers, better people in our lives, better men, better women, when we just look at the real fucking world the way it is and say, well, how do I live the best life possible? But not bullshit yourself. Just not bullshitting yourself.
It's mindset again, Ben. Another one of the best homework jobs I've ever had as a future author was actually guiding. I got to see people who are used to being in charge and have that illusion of control, not being in charge and not being in control and not even being in their environment. When you throw somebody in the back of a vehicle where they don't get to drive it, you take them off pavement, which they think means safety, and you start driving them up and down dirt roads and rocks and cliffs and stuff. You get to see the best and worst parts of human beings.
Yeah.
And even just the mindset and comments. What made me think of it was I drove a vehicle that wasn't a quote-unquote average, normal, manly color. Okay, it's one that is known as more of a female color, but that was like this company's stick. And at least once a day, some dude would come on and say, hey, real men don't drive purple vehicles. And I'd be like, actually, sir, real men drive anything they want.
Exactly. Who makes these fucking rules
Bam.
up?
And I beat him in his own game instantly.
Yeah.
His own self-limiting belief system defies his own greater big picture belief system.
Like, you made up a good point, or you said a good point right there.
I was like, I didn't make that up. It's a true story.
People are making up these values like, oh, men can't drive a purple car. Fucking says who?
Right.
Where in the fucking book of nature, show me where thousands of years ago, where it was written in fucking stone that says men can't do this or women can. See, and those negative self-limiting beliefs stops a lot of people from doing a lot of things, not just with the car, but certain women, people of race, people of certain things. They've allowed this old, outdated, stupid narrative, right? Like for example, racism is a perfect example. These fucking white people that walk around who, for hundreds of years, that believe that there was some superiority was a construct of a distorted construct that they have. It's not reality. But you can't base your life of what somebody said a long time ago. Like there's still people right now, there's minorities that think right now, even though racism still exists, there's minorities right now that still think that it's still as bad as it used to be. It's not. We're better than we used to be.
Close.
But again, don't allow your life to be determined by shitty people's perceptions of reality. Just like you stood up to the guy with the card, like that's a fucking stupid way of thinking.
Right.
So is racism. Like it shouldn't affect you and your life. Now, it doesn't mean we don't need to address these things like sexism and stuff, but we are doing better. But it shouldn't stop your mindset. In the end, you are in control of your life, not the fucking idiots, right? Not the fucking stupid people. Take back control of your life. That guy I was talking about earlier, that I want to interview for this film. I don't know if he's going to do it or not. This is a separate guy. I forgot his name now. David. What was it, babe? David Goggins.
It's always good to have your producer just off set.
That's why I'm married to her. She's way smart. Everyone's like, "Oh, Ben, you're so smart." No, it's my wife that's smart. I just hang along. So, the mindset that he had when he became a Navy SEAL is when he grew up. He's like when I was a kid, I was around racist people. The Ku Klux Klan was around me. He's like, people would call me nigger over and over and over again. And he just proved to himself that I'm not going to allow someone's stupid ass fucking ideas determine who he is. That's why he's successful now. And I just wish more people could hear this. Because don't let stupid people who don't have a correct perception of reality or who have some made up perception of fucking reality determine who you are and why. Like the guy with the purple car. Fuck you, dog.
Yeah.
You don't have to say that to people. I'm not saying you should go.
Trust me, I wanted to.
Right.
I mean, when you're working, you're working. But when I'm not working, I'd be like, fuck you, motherfucker. I have balls. I'm sorry you don't.
Yeah, it's like, but
excuse me, I'm going to go put a dress on just to fuck with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, who cares? Like, who cares? There's more to life. And you can't let other people's stupid perceptions influence you. And when you think about the group sometimes doesn't know what the fuck it's doing, and you lose your individuality in the group. It's hard to sit within that group. It's hard. It's even hard for me.
It's scary how
to be an individual.
That happens too.
Exactly. And so you have to kind of learn to not allow stupid ideas to inflict your perception of you and your self-worth and what you're doing. Because ask yourself, why does that person believe that? Why like you did? Really? What made you say that? Based off of what? Because people, they're so hardcore that it's just the way we've always been. It's like, well, it's just the way it's always been. Says who? So I look at the universe and I can see what's always been, and none of this shit was even here. That's
right.
You know what I'm saying? So
one of my reasons in picking time travel in the Tripper series, in that sci-fi series, is, I'm going to use a couple of 100 years of history, and I'm making up 100 years of history just to kind of prove some theories. And, one of the obvious one that I tell everybody that's not really a hidden theory is just how long it takes human beings to change. Not just society, but these mindsets we keep changing.
Yeah.
I mean, we keep talking about, you and I can change our personal mindset in an instant, to 6 months to a year. But look at the human cultures. Look at the billions of people on the earth. For some reason, it takes a couple 100 years to start to change a basic mindset for human beings.
That's how hard it is. That's how important a belief is. People are like, Ben, why are you always questioning beliefs? Because that's how fucking hard it is. Once you believe something, real or imagined, even about yourself, it's hard to change your fucking mind. Look, how many times do we have debates with people? You're like, here's the facts, here's the fact. I've learned one thing: the facts do not fucking matter. It's people's emotional belief. But you were just saying, we can change within a small amount of time. Actually, it took me many years for me to change my mind of all the beliefs that I had. I mean, everything I challenge are things that I used to believe. Mm-hmm. I believed it as much as most of these people are like, oh, Ben, you're just a skeptic and atheist. I'm like, no, I wasn't. I believed it just as much as you, probably even more than you did.
Right.
It took me years and years and years of questioning it to be like, but not just with those, but I'm saying even with myself. Man, we're talking about the failure stuff and the mindset. It took me years to say, Ben, you can't think like this. You can't, you know what I mean? So maybe I can now, but it took years. It's kind of like being on a diet, right? I always bring up dieting. I don't know why. I suck. I'm not a dieter. I'm not an expert at it, but
I'm on an all-you-can-eat diet.
Yeah, it takes years. It takes a long time for you to get into the swing of to build a new lifestyle and a new habit. But once you do get there, it makes it a little bit easier when you're trying to make adjustments and then doing stuff. So I agree with you that it's easier for us, but it took years of me cutting through my own bullshit. And that belief system in the world, in society, politics, government, military, I mean, there's some fucking, what do you call it? Sacred cows, even with the military, that they don't want to fucking address.
Oh, there's a ton.
And it's like, oh, it's too sacred.
Of
It's like, wait a minute. I don't think anything is that sacred that you can't talk about. So
I'm ready. I would do it.
we got a couple minutes. Do you want to throw some out, or you want to wait for another podcast before we do? I don't want to.
Oh, I mean for that? No, I think that would be like a whole stinking.
We'll save it.
Yeah.
We'll save it. So I know because we need to wrap up now, anyways. But really quick, I want to get people to get to where your book is. But before we do that, so I got this shirt on. If you guys see, it says Tripper on it, and now people might think, oh, it's because it's Reality Tripper. It's like, no, this is based off of your book. First off, why don't you talk about the book real quick? You were just mentioning it, but talk about the book before I go any further.
So in the last few years, I've done a few different directions book-wise, and the first real series I've been doing is this sci-fi, thriller series, and time travel is involved. And I hate using sci-fi. Sci-fi, we call it that because there's technology in it, but it's not about technology. It's about the people. Mm-hmm. In that series, it's time travel, and these guys and girls, the cool thing about their job is they get to go back in time and fix and tweak things for the greater good. At least that's what they think. That's why they do that job. And they're actually called trippers, and they go back in time. And it's kind of like militarily inspired as far as like their logos and logistics and how it works. And all military units come up with a logo, and that's actually what's on the back of that shirt. Is the logo, and these guys are trippers. And
I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but
you can kind of see it. Yeah,
I'm trying to bend over.
Part of the theme is they go out together, come back together. They're a team. These are people who go back not just to different countries and places that people don't know they're there. And you'll see a lot of themes in a lot of my books. That a lot of things that go on in the world, most people don't know it exists. I have a huge respect for people who have jobs that get zero recognition. I mean, even beyond first responders and EMTs. Yeah. Think of, maybe the worst example would be spies, because we all think negatively of a spy. But if a spy does his job properly, you never know. Mm-hmm. If a Navy SEAL, a Force Recon Marine, a Green Marine, a Delta Force, all these guys, if they properly do their jobs, we never know. The only we know is when they fuck up. Yeah. Or somebody else got the best of them. And in our mindset, that's fucking up too, because I underestimated them. And I really have a big thing for those human beings. And you're going to see that theme a lot in my book. And that's what these trippers do. They'll go back in time, except nobody knows they exist. So they're totally 100% on their own. And that's a big part of the theme, is these 7 people on their own taking on the world. One of my sub-themes for, the Earned Innocence book is camaraderie when taken on the world alone is mandatory. And that's one of those things that was in the book, and it wasn't until I was reading the final edit that my brain caught that phrase and I put it on the cover. It's amazing.
Right. Very cool. Well, so I was going to send some people to have them pick up this shirt, but then you told me there's only one way to get this shirt. So maybe you want to explain, if somebody wants to get a shirt, how are they going to get a shirt?
If you want to get a Tripper shirt with a Tripper emblem, you literally have to find me somehow. I'm doing the different kind of marketing where you can't, and as far as these shirts and these designs, you can, honest to God, can only get them from me. And so if you see someone with a shirt that says Tripper and it's got the emblem on the back, they saw me face to face. I'm a reclusive introvert, so it's pretty rare. I mean, I worked at Comic-Con a few years ago to sell one of my books, and I sold some shirts there. Yeah. Other than that, it's people in my life, or I have some fans already, amazingly, in the startup stage who have read all of my works. That's the only exception. There's one of those I mailed to him because, he doesn't travel. He's too busy reading books. He reads like 10, 15 books a week. Yeah. And he's a great ally. He's awesome. He's reading my books. So, okay, boom, I mailed him one of that. Other than that, you have to find me somewhere in Arizona to get this shirt, or buy all my books and ask for an autograph. And
what if they show up at Comic-Con? Does that work?
If I'm there. I'm only there when I release the sci-fi book. I'm only at Comic-Con when I release the sci-fi book. This one that I'm pushing right now for this next year it's a coming of age story. It's a contemporary fiction story, and it's also a military fiction story. So it's not really something I'm going to push at Comic-Cons.
Cool, yeah. Cool. And if they want to find out more about your book, I will have links in the show notes to connect. But if people aren't next to a computer or whatever, what's the best way for them to find out your books?
I'm all over social media, CM Halstead, and he'll put that up there for you. If you Google that or put that in whatever search engine you use, and you'll find me. So I'm most active on Instagram. I'm a visual person. I love the pictures and stuff, so I'm most active on there. Most of my books you can either get off from cmhalstead.com or Amazon as well. And again, I want everybody to read my stuff. I want everybody to read my books. And at the same time, as a startup, it's hard to really put it out there for everybody. So you either got to come and see me somehow. You'll get lucky if you do that, as far as because I'm hard to find. Even my friends, I disappear from my friends, right, for months, 6 months at a time. And by the way, if you don't see me a lot on social media, it's because I'm working. That's how we go into hiding and we work. cmhalstead.com. Earn Innocence is the latest book. And they're all there.
Okay, cool. And we'll also have it in the show notes. And then if for whatever reason you can't find it, go to benfamajr.com. In the show notes, we'll have it there. So that's great. It's always a pleasure, buddy, to have talking with you.
I can't believe we're done already.
There's never enough fucking. I want to go Joe Rogan one of these days and do 3-hour show. I wonder if we did. I don't even know. I didn't even pay attention to the time this time, but I wonder if I want to go that length eventually. But it's always a great conversation.
Hour and 40 minutes.
Was it really? This is the longest podcast I've ever had.
I still got I had 3 things.
I do too. I know, but I know, but people's attention span is so short. But
mine too.
But it's a great excuse to bring you back again. So,
there we go.
But anyways, thank you again so much, buddy, for having me here.
You're welcome.
And like I said, make sure you check out his stuff. Make sure you check out all of his work he's doing. He's a brilliant writer. Keep an eye on him and all the great stuff. And if you like the podcast, if you like what you heard, please subscribe and please share. And we will talk to you next week. Peace out.
You've been listening to Reality Trip with Ben Fama Jr. Check out more great content by visiting benfamajr.com.